So before our big celebration last Sunday night, my little family spent most of Saturday at Quentin Prison, an infamous place just over the Richmond Bridge. We were there to see Dennis, a man who is on death row and has been incarcerated since 1996. Dennis became connected to our family beginning in 2011, when my husband applied to be a part of a program to visit prisoners who hadn't been seen in over 10 years. That means nobody has visited them. Jeremy has visited him faithfully and cultivated a deep relationship where in small cells, and all of us from a distance, with lots of letters exchanged, became a part of one another's lives. The world Dennis inhabits is lived out in a cell that he meticulously curates with items he collects, buys, creates, and trades. His world is lived out in brief periods of fresh air in the yard and in his celebrated culinary creations, making miracles with ramen and Spam and spice packets, which he loves to talk about. I have been writing to him for a while, telling him of our world and the minutiae of our life. He seems to savor the details, asking Jeremy questions about things he remembered from a picture he brought the last time. The world Dennis inhabits is confined. Imagine not having the internet, oh my gosh, or fresh vegetables, or mutual touch on a regular basis. This last Saturday was my first time seeing Dennis in person. San Quentin is such a study in contrasts, situated on some of the most spectacular real estate in the entire Bay Area, while inside life feels reduced dramatically, dropped down to a person's number and privileges and time limits, and tolerance for mostly peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was just recently approved for a visit by the Department of Corrections, and I was equal parts anxious and excited to meet Dennis for the first time. Before we entered the small cage that attempted to present itself as a room, with its plastic see-through walls, we joined the small crowd at the vending machines to bring in the special snacks he requested. It's a world where a cold soda is a taste of heaven, and a bag of microwaved popcorn is an answer to prayer. And I actually brought popcorn today in honor of Dennis. Now, Dennis is quick to share his tips that include using a napkin to sanitize the top of the can, swiping it firmly in a round sweep. He made sure to remind me to do that before I took a drink. We filled our tray with what my daughter pointed out was mostly in our house honorably labeled as junk. And then we watched as he went through a routine where he was handcuffed for our entry and then uncuffed through a small opening in the door so we could all be in the space together. Tears were on the edge of spilling the whole time, and in the end I couldn't stop it. But while we were there for just approximately 90 minutes, we all seemed to follow an invisible yellow brick road to an alternate universe where even those with the label condemned could feel worthy as a whole person with ideas and feelings in a life that matters. We talked about the weather, and he told some old stories. We complained about politics, and he talked about cars. It was something like what Greek scholars call kairos time, a sense of the moments where the minutes of measure are cast aside, and all you can do is be present. I kept things bottled up for that hour and a half until a guard suddenly appeared, and all the unspoken language and symbols I didn't know initiated a process where Dennis had to prepare his body in a slumped posture and place his hands behind his back so he could be handcuffed again and return to his everyday life. I managed to make it out to the sunshine before completely losing my shit. I was numbed into silence by the truth that he never gets to see that view. My throat became locked with a pulse of pain as I processed the fact that seeing my kid and her laughter and energy was like a touch from another realm for someone who hasn't been around a kid in decades. It's all so hard to process and to experience. But I felt moved to be there, even simply to just show up as a witness. My friend Evelyn is the chaplain at the main jail here in San Jose, and she has given almost 20 years to being God's love to those behind bars. It's clear that many of us haven't had to know the truth of what happens to those who have become a part of what is so wrongly labeled as our correctional system. Our little church has a newly formed Justice in Action book club. We are reading an incredible book, which is actually a UU Common Read 2 years ago, I believe, called Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. And it offers beautiful illustrations, painfully and poetically, about the individual and communal pain caused by mass incarceration. And this week, a newcomer named Linda came. And at one point, when we spoke of the criminal justice system, she piped up, "It's not a justice system," she said. Many communities are used to living with this reality, but for much of my life, I lived with the myth that only criminals went to jail. What do we do with the truth that often justice is denied? How do we respond when mercy is absent and liberation is hard to find? At the end of the drama we read from the Gospel of John, you hear Jesus tell Lazarus, "Come out." And I noticed for the first time this year that when he says, "Unbind him and let him go," he's actually directing his words to the crowd. It's something like, you who see this, you who are not tied up, it's your role, your task, your call to unbind him. The story in Christian tradition, of course, draws, as I said, from the arc of Jewish history in Ezekiel, who prophesies to a valley of dry bones, and the bones come to life. As one commentator writes, Ezekiel's vision is to a people who have lost hope, and Jesus' calling of Lazarus to new life is prefiguring his own rise. And both of these stories invite us to ponder how it is that possibilities can somehow emerge in places that seem like the end. How is it that hope and love can bring us from dry bones to healing? Perhaps part of the answer for us as people committed to being instruments of peace and justice is that we are sometimes asked to help unbind each other, not to look away when it's hard, but to offer what we have to unbind. Dennis will never be completely freed from San Quentin, but he offered a space for all of us to unbind, for our family to be unbound in a way that I am still processing. Dennis has wrappings like all of us, even though his are more evident. And I find that parts of our lives, our patterns, our history also need unraveling. And the dream would be that this could be a sacred space where we can create a container for us to help one another, pulling off the wrappings from old wounds. On this spiritual journey we share, I know that there are days and seasons where we see that we are the crowd, and it is our job to believe in healing on someone else's behalf. In this time when the universe looks to us and shouts, "Unbind him, unbind her, unbind them," I believe we are summoned to say, yes, here we are. We all have our dry bones and our wrappings, but often we can't be unbound on our own. May we unbind one another. May it be so. Amen.